Okay. We're back again. Greetings, everybody. Greetings to anyone listening, to anyone watching. And thank you for staying tuned. I'm very aware that in the last video I talked about making monthly videos, but I'm sure I gave myself some grace. I'm sure I gave myself some space there to say that these videos will likely be monthly, but there might be some space. So we'll say quarterly, chapterly videos. But to everyone who tuned in to the last video, I appreciate you coming back for this one. My name is Vili, for those of you who don't know. Before anything else, I just want to give thanks for anyone giving their attention, their focus, their energy to this moment with me. I give thanks to all the beautiful beings that are around me right now. All these beautiful birds, beautiful crows flying overhead. Those ones weren't crows, but those ones that way were. Yes, and this beautiful piece of earth that I'm sitting on. I give thanks and acknowledge this beautiful place. I am sitting in a region known as Bulbancha. And to those of you who know what it is, you know what it is. This is historic home of Choctaw people, Huacha, Chawasha, Homa, Chitimacha, and many more. I am sitting by a very famous, gorgeous, and powerful river known as Mississippi. Modern day name deriving from the ancient name, Mississippi River. Just to clue you in to where we're at. Modern day, this is known as so-called New Orleans. New Orleans. So I'm here. We are here. Bagu is here. Bagu the pup. He's over here sleeping in the shade. He's a little camera shy. Until he's not. But I give thanks to y'all for joining here. Joining in the ether. A powerful portal of time that we are all in together. Any astrologer will tell you that, any empath will tell you that, any seer will tell you that, any prophet will tell you that right now. Is there ever a time that isn't important? I think easy answer would be no. But there are times that are more spicy than others. This is definitely one of those times. We're nestled in between a time known by ancient Irish ancestors as Imbolc, but we're also just about to hit Virgo new moon, as we call it in the West. So I gotta bring awareness, always, I gotta bring awareness to the language, I gotta bring awareness to what we're talking about and why we're talking about it. Modern day Turtle Island, we're a mix of many things. So personally, I acknowledge some of the ancient Celtic holidays because some of my ancestors celebrated them. So they resonate on that level. And where I'm at, physically, culturally, it makes sense to adapt some of that language. A lot of our, well, I guess where I'm usually living in the northeast part of Turtle Island, yeah, a lot of the seasons tend to line up with the Celtic Wheel of the Year, so it's just something that has resonated with me. And yeah, of course, when I'm surrounded by, immersed in, and instructed on various like indigenous traditions from Turtle Island, I tend to lean more into that. But since I travel so much, that's one of the reasons why I do look for some sort of overarching, calendar to look at. So that's one reason that I use the language that I use at the times that I use it. And then to use the Western astrological names for the moons, again, it's a common language that people are used to these days. And I know that the roots of Western astrology go back to ancient Kemet, right, known as Egypt, so I do feel some ancestral resonance there. But yes, this is the time that we are in. This is the time that we are in. Imbolc is that halfway time between what we would think of as winter and spring. Some people think of it as the beginning of spring, whereas the equinox would be more like the height of spring. That's one way to look at it. In the north and in cold climates, it can be a time to really sit by the hearth and craft. Imbolc is Bridget's holiday, named after the goddess Bridget, or Briad. She is associated with smithcraft, poetry, plant medicine, protecting the family, protecting the home, the hearth, fire element, many other things. She is one of those deities that I think of as purely benevolent, very easy to lean into her energy, very welcoming, very warm. And the reality of having deities in our practice and acknowledging ancient deities in our practice, it varies culture to culture, right? Because you have some deities that are just egregores, right? They're just symbolic representations of group thinking. Then you have some deities that were genuine, very wise and powerful beings that dwelt among our ancestors. And that could look like many, many different things, right? So I think something important to understand always about the traditions of the ancient world is that they were so vastly diverse that it's not something that we can just categorize into clean-cut Western categories of thought. There's overlap, and there's nuance, there's subtleties that we can have a hard time understanding in the modern day. So these are all things to keep in mind. But the holiday of Imbolc has always been very powerful for me, especially as a songwriter, as a poet. It can be a time where I just sit by the hearth and write and just channel the inspiration that comes. So this year I was on the move more so. From the last video, I think I talked about being on a journey, traveling throughout Turtle Island. So I wasn't so much at my home and hearth, but I was in a space with a lot of fertile creative energy. I was in modern day Nashville, Tennessee, just Cherokee ancestral land, among others. I enjoyed that time there. We were there for a new moon. Oh wait, when were we there? I'm sorry, we were there for Leo full moon, actually. And it's interesting because a lot of the ancient holidays, I've noticed, it doesn't feel like they have clean-cut beginnings and endings either. They have like a portal that opens, and you're aware of it or you're not. Either way, it's there. And yeah, there'll be times when those of us who are tapped into that and feeling into that will just start to feel like, okay, yeah, the Imbolc portal is open. And this one lasted quite a while. It lasted quite a while. My lunar calendar, my Wee Moon lunar calendar, I'm not paid to advertise for them, I just enjoy their stuff. Has lunar Imbolc on the most recent new moon, on Aquarius new moon, which is usually when I think of it. This one just happened to be pretty late, so I definitely felt that I was celebrating Imbolc around the Leo full moon. But here we are, almost a month later, nestled between Imbolc and Virgo full moon, which we can talk about in a bit. Yeah, as many of y'all know, any of you who are astrologers yourself or follow the teachings of an astrologer, you'll know that we are getting set up for a very potent and powerful year and a very powerful astrological chapter, maybe even revolutionary. It's something that I feel I'm experiencing in my body very strongly and in my immediate sphere. I won't go too much into detail, and maybe also just out of a humble recognition of my level of skill and ability to transmit knowledge about these certain things. But I can focus in on this transit of Saturn moving into Aries and how that's been affecting me. Oh my goodness. Well, as many of you may know, my sun sign is in Aries. And that's really the only Aries I have in my chart, actually. But it's a hell of a place to have it. The sun is exalted in Aries. So both the sun and the sign of Aries are very clearly, purely expressed by those of us born under the sign of the Ram. So when we have a strong transition through the sign of Aries, it's something that I tend to experience personally, like on a personal level. I experience it right up close and personal. It's not happening on an underlying layer of my life. It's not in an outer planet, right? It's happening very much in my front and center. So I think, but there's a part of me that's sitting here deciding what level of detail to go into. But we will say I have very much had a brush with the laws of karma and the karma of laws in modern day so-called USA. And it has left me feeling some type of way, my friends. It has left me feeling some type of way. I say as this random European American man practices golfing, facing me hitting this ball this way. Anyway, and I don't say it to focus on the negative, I just say it to say there are certain small things that many of us who live in this part of the world have come to accept as normal that I no longer can accept as normal. Aries can very much be an energy of enough is enough. You know, Aries is not always the type to give a second chance. Though we can be very forgiving, sometimes we learn all we need to learn from a small sample of something, and then we're out of there. And sometimes that's interpreted as Aries being impatient or Aries being a quitter. Those are shadow sides that, are worth exploring, and I'm sure there's a level of validity there to anyone who would say that. But the wisdom side of that is that Aries doesn't need to stick around to see the ugly end of something. We can see the beginning, we see the head, we don't need to see the rest of the beast. We don't need to see the body of the dragon, we see the head and we're like, I'm good. I'm not going to wait for the rest to emerge. Speaking of dragons, I got my little dragon here, trying to breathe fire. Yeah, he's like, hey, stop. Anyway. So, yeah, needless to say, Saturn moving into Aries was huge for me. It was very huge. Still is. It's going to be for the next 2.5, 3 years. Oh, goodness. I mean, I'm almost like, bring back Saturn and Pisces, man. I mean, the lessons during Saturn and Pisces, once again, they were happening in the Piscean realm. They're happening in the spiritual realm. They're happening in the subtle realm. They're happening in the dream, the astral, the underlying layers. Now we're seeing the lessons of karma are going to happen in your face. Okay, it's going to be undeniable. It's going to be unignorable. And this is for all of us. And we're all going to have different reactions to that. We're all going to have different responses to that. Yes, and I'm no expert in. I'm no expert in, Eastern zodiac systems, but enough to, I share enough of a kindred spirit with the ancestors who created these traditions to understand what they were expressing. Right, when someone says, "Oh, it's Lunar New Year, Year of the Fire Horse," I didn't have to necessarily be raised with that language to understand what is being expressed and what's being said, and seeing the pattern that it's expressing. I'm like, oh yeah, it is. Oh yeah, definitely. If no one told me that and asked me to come up with a name for this year, I might have called it the Fire Horse myself, because that's exactly what we're about to see. We're about to see this charge, this gallop, this running, with passion and just energy and rage and all these things surrounding us and behind us, and that is the image that we will see this year, and that is going to affect this whole chapter, this whole cycle. Aries is, of course, the beginning. It's the beginning of a cycle. So the tone is going to be set. I wrote down, what did I write down? This is just stuff I was thinking earlier. This is not a time to be polite, especially when it comes to the injustice that's at hand. I think, in the past couple years, even as far as our activism goes, there's a lot of dreaming about what we're going to do and theorizing about what we're going to do, and, doing art about what we're going to do. That's all very Piscean. Aries is like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? Where are we going to get fed up and just stop it right there? Where are we going to begin something new that's actually aligned with what we want? Right, it's not just about eat the rich. That's almost, as Aries as that sounds, that's almost this Piscean thing. It's almost like this fantasy that's never, we're not, maybe that will happen, literally. But it's almost this idea, it's like, right? Wouldn't that be cool if we all actually had enough fire under our ass to eat the rich? Well, now we do. Now we do. And so it's not just about, okay, everybody go out there and, eat your local rich person. What I'm saying is, go out there and feed your local community member who needs support. It's a doing time, right? And many of y'all are already doing it, okay? We all have different charts. We all have different alignment of fate and different decision-making patterns. Some of us have jumped the gun. Some of us have never stopped doing the work since the dawn of time, and we're just reincarnating into lifetimes in which we continue doing the work. There's all different levels of that. But right now we're seeing a lot of people waking up to, I need to make a step one. I need to divest from the system. It's time to divest from the system. Compliance is violence. It's over. It's over. The machine is not run by the people who are blowing the whistle and cracking the whip. The machine is run by the people who are the cogs who continue turning. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. This is not the time to just, 9 to 5 it and small business it even, or anything. It's time to end the present system and create new. Let's take those steps towards creating something new, taking bold, courageous, even kind of like angry, righteously angry steps towards something new. This is the download that's coming through for me. So, looking at this time, And then contrasting that a bit with the emotional and spiritual seasons marked by the moon, the movement of the moon, the goddess of magic. Virgo full moon. So I sigh when I say Virgo full moon because it really comes as a relief every year. It just really gives me the permission to self-heal. Mm-hmm. And it's this amazing balance of Pisces and Virgo, right? Because we have Sun in Pisces, Moon in Virgo. So the Piscean sun sign, that Piscean solar energy is really holding this season in a huge way, right? And we can even think of it as, even as we go into the night, our skin still feels warm. Well, it depends on where you are. But our skin still feels warm from the sun of the day. So even as I go into the night, I feel held by the Piscean energy of this solar season. So Virgo is a sign of a healer. I don't want to say the sign of the healer, but it's a healer's sign. Specifically an herbalist, it's an earth sign. It's someone who's really connected to the earth element. Someone who's connected to the practical and honestly somewhat humble steps that one can take to bring greater healing, greater alignment, more ideal, optimized flow into their life. Pisces really benefits from that energy. There's a reason that these signs contrast. Pisces really benefits from that energy. Having a grounding force, having someone who can help organize the channel that Pisces is bringing through. Virgo's being cute. Yeah, as I said, it's a time when I can really give myself permission to heal. It's a time when I can really start to take those small, practical steps. Maybe dialing in my diet, dialing in my daily habits is a big one. Virgo has a lot to do with habits, for good or for ill. And when we build amazing habits, we build an amazing life. And that's so broad and vague, but because we're in the Pisces season, we can look at Virgo lending energy towards our spiritual habits, our spiritual health. It could be something as simple. This is a great place to start, but something as simple as keeping a journal, keeping a dream journal, keeping an intuition journal. That's been really awesome too, in my life at different times. Writing down when you have a little hunch about something that you would almost ignore, but you actually write it down, and then watch how it plays out. Watch how significant. Sometimes it's amazing. It's amazing how significant that little hunch you got in the morning will be come evening time. Like, wow, I'm so glad I chose to go get pizza today when I was thinking about it, because then I met this person that led to this and that. This is a good time to just take a small step, make a small habit of listening to just one hunch per day, per week. Write it down, catch yourself, and watch what a big difference that makes. Watch what a huge difference that makes. So, yeah, there's more I could say on that. What did I even write down? Balancing the practical and the magical. Okay, I also wrote this down. Your imaginary world at this time is actually crossing paths with your practical world, right? And by imaginary, we have just abused that word in the English language to mean something, fake. It's not fake. It's just something that you're seeing with your inner eye that you're maybe at this time not seeing with your physical eyes. And we know that this isn't all there is, right? I would hope so. And if not, that's okay. But this is not all there is. What you see physically is just simply not all there is. And we could explain that in terms of physics, we could explain it in terms of psychology, we could explain it in however you want to explain it. But what you see physically is not all there is. So this can be a time where we see our physical world and our inner imagined world crossing paths, which is a very powerful thing, right? And it's best not to let it overwhelm us. Virgo can be good at managing their overwhelm by taking small practical steps. So during this full moon, it can be time to really internalize those lessons. One of the last notes I wanted to give for this download is to bring a lot of attention to the vibration from which you are acting. Right? Bring a lot of attention to the vibe that sets you in motion. You know, what's getting you out of bed? What is moving you forward? Right, you know, let's say you're laying in bed having very peaceful thoughts, very tranquil thoughts, and thoughts that are feeling very resonant with your highest path, thoughts that are resonating with your healing journey. Let's act on some of those thoughts. Okay, but let's say sometimes this happens to me, right? I'll be laying in bed, feeling peaceful. I don't feel the need to do anything at this moment because I'm feeling peaceful. And then an anxious thought will come, and I go, oh shit, I should do this. And all right, let me get up and give it. And now, guess what? As soon as I start thinking like that and acting on that vibration, I'm on that path. That is the vibration that will unfold before me. That's about the simplest way I could put it. But let's say I sit there and I meditate and let me do, what's the next peaceful thing I can do? What's the next peaceful vibration that I can act upon? What is the next healing vibration that I can act upon? And then eventually, again, this does play into, you know, building healthy habits. Eventually you're going to look back on a whole life of peaceful decisions and peaceful outcomes. And these things are easier said than done. And if you know me, then you know that I speak of I speak of goals and not always achievements. But I've done both. You know, there's places where I've succeeded upholding my spiritual values, and there's places where I've failed. And it's very clear to see how the lessons unfold one way or another, depending on either which way. So, yes, that is the gist of what I was feeling called to share today. You know, as I said, this has been a challenging chapter for me in many ways. It's also been a very clarifying chapter. And yeah, I expect even sharper clarity to come into my sphere as I continue on. And I'll share updates as I have them. But yes, currently Living Earth Sanctuary is mobile. And if you are interested in getting in touch with anyone back home involving volunteer work with Living Earth Sanctuary back in Mohawk Land, in modern day Little Falls, New York, then feel free to reach out here over the YouTubes, or I think my email is on the profile. Reach out over YouTube and we'll go from there. Yeah, as I carry on with this kind of correspondence, I'll get more comfortable with it and more organized, no doubt. So, I send love from myself and from Pagu, from this land that I'm sitting on, from this sun that shines on me, from the birds that are singing around me, from this wind that carries my words to you, along with however this technology works, that is sending my vibration to you in the strangest of ways. Yeah, I give thanks to everyone who's tuned in and stuck around. I wish you all peace and blessings on your highest path. And we'll speak soon. Be well until then.